Welcome to Mumbrella House. I'm Tim Burrows. My guest today is Adam Ferrier, Chief Strategy Officer of Cummins&Partners, and also, I guess, wearing at least one other hat today, which is curator of the M6 conference, which is a project we're working on together with Mumbrella. M6, and I always have to pause at this point, Adam, while I work it through in my mind. Marketing, Science, Ideas, Exchange.
That's right. Well done, Tim.
I got there. The simplest tasks can defeat me sometimes, but happily on this one. Adam, the obvious place to start is, can marketing ever really claim to be a science?
I'm just going to tilt my screen slightly so I can get the rule of thirds happening right with these bloody lines behind me. No, I don't think so. I don't think marketing can be completely a science, and nor do I necessarily want it to be. However, I think that the sciences and behavioural sciences can add a lot to marketing and what we're doing. It kind of feels, I'm old enough now and been in marketing long enough to have lived through the experiential phase, where the answer was always experiential communications. And then we went through a phase where the answer was always social media, and everything had to be social media. And it kind of feels like this is a new way of doing things and a new approach. And it's not the whole answer, but just like experiential and our social media are often part of a solution, I think part of a solution is always going to be wedded in behavioural sciences as we move forwards. And it's just going to be about finding what contributes and what adds value to our processes and what doesn't.
And do you see behavioural economics as synonymous with marketing science, or is one kind of a subset of the other?
I think one's a subset of the other. I think behavioural economics initially got Rory Sutherland, who's our keynote speaker, incredibly excited because he saw behavioural economics solving a whole lot of problems for the government in terms, like how to get people to pay their taxes on time, how to get people to adopt healthier behaviours and so forth. He saw behavioural economics having a massive inroads into solving some of these big problems, and he thought, hang on, advertising should be doing that. What are those guys doing over there solving all of these problems without advertising being involved? Advertising in the broader sense of the word, of course. And so if you think behavioural economics has been a school of thought that's been incredibly popularised over the last 10 years by the likes of Daniel Kahneman of Thinking Fast and Slow and the books Nudge and Predictably Irrational and so on. But it's only a small part of behavioural sciences in a general term. But it's the exciting and sexy part. And what we want to do is apply that all to marketing. And it's marketing sciences as a term, it just feels so dull and unappealing. And yet, the more you get into it, the more interesting it becomes and the more practical it can be. So, kind of excited about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was the inspiration for kind of thinking, okay, now is the time to do a conference like this?
Because we're trying to do, this is going to sound a bit poxy, but we're trying to do the right thing by our clients. And and if there's a whole school of thought out there that's helping us solve problems and making us become more confident in the solutions that we're offering, then it's incumbent upon us to know about it. And sometimes having the loudest voice in a particular area, or very rarely does having the loudest voice in a particular area mean you know the most about that particular area. Now, I've developed quite a loud voice in this area, but my knowledge is still, just like all of us, it's not everything it should be. And I always wanted to bring all these people together to learn as much as I possibly could about the subject. And in so doing, invite everybody along to that forum as well.
Do you know, it's funny you should say that, because when I kind of had the opportunity to sit down and look at your list of your dream speakers and your dream program and just started kind of looking at their session descriptions, their bios, that was the point where I thought, actually, this is one conference I'm not going to want to be slipping in and out of the room at the back. I'm just going to want to sit there for the whole time, because there are some pretty decent speakers. Firstly, we should mention it's July 30th, so it's coming up from when we're chatting now in less than a month's time. Let's start maybe talking about the Behavioural Insights team. Alex Gianni,
Alex Gianni, a part of the Behavioural Insights team, and the Behavioural Insights team was something set up in the UK some years ago now by the UK government, and they were the ones who originally started to popularise the work that behavioural economists were doing. It became so successful in the UK government that the model got exported to the US government and started to solve problems for the US government over there. And now, interestingly, and not that many people know this, but the New South Wales government now has their own behavioural insights team, of which Alex and various other people are a part of. Now, they've been going for about a year, and they've got 3 or 4 fantastic case studies of how behavioural economics is helping change policy for the New South Wales government, and that's part of what Alex will be talking about.
And you touched on the idea of making people pay their taxes without taking any of kind of Alex's material. How do you apply that to make people pay their taxes?
You apply it by understanding how people think, how people process information from a behavioural economist point of view, and then applying those principles in your pieces of communication. So what you'll see is a case study in that particular instance of how they used to communicate with people to try to get them to pay their taxes on time, compared to all the different things they've learned about how people process information, and then systematically applying all of those pieces of knowledge. And that's what they've done, and now they've completely changed how they ask people to pay their taxes on time. The other interesting thing about it is in terms of their process as well. They haven't just said, oh, we think that's the answer, but they've conducted a series of experiments to try to get to the right answer, or an answer that's more effective. And I think even just learning experimental frameworks for marketers will also help them test and retest and learn and optimise what they're doing.
Now, you touched on Rory Sutherland, who's doing the keynote. I guess I know him best from his kind of TED Talks, but what exactly are his credentials?
Well, Rory was the head of the IPA, the International Practice of Advertisers. Something that's right, isn't it?
I think practitioners, I think, so very close. 9 out of 10.
And he's also co-chairman of Ogilvy. He's been a champion for behavioural economics for over 10 years now. And like I said before, he saw behavioural economists solving a whole lot of problems that he thought would belong in the realm of advertising agencies, and advertising should be able to solve. And so he's been championing behavioural economics for a long time. He speaks very eloquently about it. He probably understands more about the principles behind behavioural economics and their direct applications to advertising than anybody else I know. I caught up with him last year to have a chat about what he would like to chat about at this conference, and I can guarantee that it'll be applicable and entertaining.
And then after Rory, Paul Fishlock, quite well known and quite an interesting kind of, I guess, link to the world of creative. So I suspect sometimes might almost see this as the opposite of, acting on instinct, just that pure creativity. Paul will be kind of making the case that that's not the case.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think Rory is brilliant and love him, but the person who I'm most interested in seeing speak is Paul Fishlock. And because he is a creative, and he's a creative who has completely embraced behavioural sciences in general and behavioural economics in particular, and he now applies that directly to the creative process. I think what's interesting in advertising and our industry in particular is the creative has always been the bastion of all knowledge, and creativity and science in our industry have often found it very hard to kind of gel. And so the fact that he's one of the most lauded creatives in Australia, and he's embraced behavioural sciences so much, I think will be a good role model for all creatives. And it'll be interesting just to hear his processes, how he goes about it.
Another, I guess, aspect of behavioural economics is how it actually affects how systems are designed, websites are designed, etc. And that's something that John Williams is going to be touching on. Yeah,
John Williams is one of the managing partners of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Again, I've known John for some years. John has got some fantastic examples of manipulating mass data, or big data is the term, isn't it? The sexy term. Of manipulating big data for clients such as airlines and financial services, and how to optimise those, again, according to the principles of behavioural sciences to shift mass communications and mass behaviour.
Now, something you're doing, I don't want to give away too much, so tell me to stop asking questions on this one. If so, you're conducting some sort of experiment on the day. Am I going to spoil it if I say any more than that?
Yeah, if you say much more than that, you will. What we are doing is conducting an experiment where people won't know what the experiment is or when it's happening, but we will be modifying their behaviour without them realising it. We will then feed back the results of that experiment, a little bit like what Facebook have recently done, isn't it? But anyway, maybe no. Hopefully it's not. Anyway, it's an ethical experiment. It won't cause any harm, we hope. But one of the reasons why we're doing this is because we want this to be interactive. We want this to be fun. We're going to have, this is going to sound a bit hokey, but we'll have a DJ there. We'll have good food and booze. It'll all be interactive. You'll be learning from each other. You'll be speaking to the speakers. They just won't be talking at you. As a part of the experiment is getting everybody involved so they can witness and experientially learn what we're talking about as well as just hearing about it.
And you're also running something of a challenge as well, a team challenge.
Yeah. So without, we don't know how this is going to go. We hope it's going to go okay. But what we're going to be asking from all the participants of the conference is to put up some ideas that they would like behavioural economists or people who are involved in behavioural sciences to solve during the day according to the principles of behavioural economics. So what they're going to do is at the very beginning of the day, we're going to ask for some problems. Those problems are then going to be given to 2 teams of 2, and they are then going to try to solve those problems live in a challenge type situation, and the audience will be voting on who creates the best solution in that time. So, sorry, Tim. So what I like about doing this is you'll not only get an answer, which may or may not be right, but you'll be able to get the thinking behind the answer, which is what we're really interested in, is trying to codify what we so instinctually do, so that we can understand the process a little bit more and get better at it.
And we then touch on, I guess, research, which is where Mike Daniels comes in.
Yeah. So Mike is the founder of a research company called the Behavioural Architects. So much of research is done so badly these days, and I think we all know who the main culprits are. And I shouldn't mention them, should I? But
you mention them if you like, Adam.
so much is done on self-report and trying to get people to to watch ads and use worms and report how they think about things and report how they feel about things. And often in market research, the least reliable witness is the person themselves. And there's a whole lot of other influences like social norms and so on that don't even realise are influencing their behaviour. And so Mike's again applied some of the principles of marketing sciences to how the behavioural architects actually conduct research and build knowledge. And I think understanding the consumer is very, very different to asking the consumer stuff. Sometimes you don't have to ask the consumer anything to really understand them.
Okay, then we hear from Bree Williams, who will kind of again kind of talk about I suppose the website side of things.
Yeah, I mean, this is where kind of behavioural economics and UX kind of dovetails together. Bree is one of the best speakers I've ever heard in behavioural economics talk. She's amazing, and when people see her, they will want to get a bit of what she knows.
Okay, and then there's a science behind what content, what makes people want to share content as well.
Yeah, Dr. Karen Nielsen is part of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, who are probably Australia's leading kind of group looking at behavioural sciences in general, and Dr. Byron Sharp is part of that group, who's written a book called How Brands Grow. Karen's also written a book on the science behind the virility of communications and has broken down some principles. they're probably, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute is has an incredibly polarizing school of knowledge. Some people are sworn advocates to it and love it, and some people aren't as much. So I can't wait to hear her talk.
Okay, and then we kind of, certainly for day one, July the 30th, we then finished with Liam Smith talking about incentives.
Yeah, so Liam Smith is from Behavioural Works, which is part of Monash University, and he looks at, often when we try to change people's behaviour, we offer them incentives, and sometimes those incentives can backfire and work in completely the opposite way you think they are, or can attract completely the opposite person who you want them to attract. So sometimes some incentives are often just attract people who are going to buy your product anyway, for example. Liam has studied incentives and how to change people's behaviour with incentives extensively, and he's going to share his knowledge on that.
And I think what we're thinking is that day one, that's a conference in its own right, but some people will then choose to come back on day two for the kind of the small group workshops. There are 3 of those. Do you want to maybe explain what your thinking is, what people can hope to achieve if they come along to one?
Yeah, the workshops are really interesting. They're actually been selling out, I think, almost quicker than the conference itself. But we've got 3 people. So we've got Bree, we've got Paul, and we've got Mike, who are all running particular workshops, all aimed at solving real-world problems. Which the only caveat is that you have to share your problem and work in a team of. I'm not sure what we're capping the numbers at yet, but they'll be kept small and intimate. And then it'll be a 3-hour session working on those real problems and learning about behavioural sciences, and then, but in a practical way. Then at the end of that session, or the morning session, everybody will come together and have lunch, and we'll all be talking about what each group learnt. And then in the afternoon, there'll be a different moderator with a slightly different approach, and everybody will go away again and work in their various streams, and again come back at the end of a day to share in a larger format what we learned.
And Adam, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the thing that I always think when when I'm involved in putting together a program for a conference is what makes it interesting is there's 1 or 2 things that actually feel a bit risky, that make you a bit nervous, that could actually fail. What most scares you about this program?
The type of conferences I can't stand are ones where everybody just talks at me, and none of the speakers are relating to what the other speaker has to say. So you get a whole lot of different chunks of information that don't really fit together. What we've tried to do is construct this information with people speaking generally about behavioural sciences, and then in the morning on the first day, and then specific streams of information of applicability in the afternoon. And then on the second day is applying that in practice. So that's the theory. What I'm hoping is that theory manifests itself into action. So that's what I'm hoping. The other thing that I don't like is people talking at me the whole time. I like to be interactive, and I like the whole thing to feel like everybody's learning off each other. So the other thing I'm scared of is if we have speakers speaking and people listening, that people will respect those roles. I don't want people to respect those roles too much. I hope it's all discursive, all conversational, and we build up each other's knowledge.
Fantastic. Well, it's worth reminding people that the website for M6, the Marketing Science Ideas Exchange, is msix.com.au, July the 30th and July the 31st, and we would love to have people along. Yeah,
it's tickets are going well, so get along. It'll be an interesting crowd.
Fabulous. Well, Adam, thank you very much for your time. See you on the 30th.
Good on you, Tim. Take care.